The chains bite into his wrists as the wagon grinds up the Kelvin grade, the river far below and the desert wind hot in his face. Night is falling over the Gila. Sheriff Glenn Reynolds walks beside the team with a shotgun, his deputy behind him. The road is narrow, cut in rock, and the horses labor. 8 prisoners ride in the bed under a canvas sheet, ankles linked, hands tied. One of them, the scout the papers now call the Apache Kid, shifts to keep his balance as the wheels thump over ruts. The wagon stalls on the steepest pitch. Reynolds orders everyone out. The men climb down, shackled, and the climb becomes a push. The deputy reaches to help. A voice warns him to keep clear. Someone slips. The shotgun snaps up. In the next breath, there is shouting, a scramble in the dark, and the first man goes down on the road. By the time the echo fades, the prisoners have the gun. Years before that night, the scout now known to soldiers as the Apache Kid had a name among his people, Haskay-bay-nay-ntayl. Born in the 1860s, he came of age when raids, patrols, and removals shaped life on the Arizona frontier. As a boy, he lived around army posts. One account says he worked for a cavalryman's household, learning some English. When he was old enough to carry a rifle, he joined the Scouts, who rode for the U.S. Army against breakaway bands. By the mid-1880s, he served under Chief of Scouts Al Sieber for Generals George Crook and Nelson Miles during the campaigns that ended with Geronimo's final surrender in 1886. The Scouts were the Army's eyes in country few soldiers could cross fast. They read sign and moved fast. Haskay-bay-nay-ntayl proved reliable and tough, and the pay, strict as it was, meant food, ammunition, and a measure of standing at San Carlos. In 1887, trouble rose at the reservation after a run of arrests for tiswin, the fermented corn drink the authorities banned. A killing in the hills pulled several scouts into a cycle of revenge. The agent wanted the ringleaders disarmed. On June 1st, Sieber met a group of scouts near the agency to take their weapons. The air was already tense. A shot cracked from the crowd, and Sieber went down with a shattered ankle. Who fired was argued for years. In the confusion, Haskay-bay-nay-ntayl and several others fled into the hills, knowing a charge would follow. Within days, they gave themselves up. Army officers turned them over to territorial authorities for trial. In Globe, a jury convicted the men of assault with intent to kill, a verdict with heavy sentences. Public anger ran hot, and the judge imposed death for some and long terms for others before officials commuted the worst. Legal motions pushed the prisoners far from their home ground. In 1888, after a series of appeals, the group was sent to Alcatraz Island for safekeeping while the case moved. A mugshot from the island shows a slight, watchful young man. When the court sent the case back for retrial in Arizona, the men were brought east again and ordered to Yuma Territorial Prison. That meant a hard overland haul, wagon from Globe down the Gila to the railroad at Casa Grande. On November 2nd, 1889, Sheriff Reynolds, Deputy William Hunky-Dory Holmes, and civilian driver Eugene Middleton took the prisoners out of Globe chained together. The road climbed above the river onto the Kelvin grade, steep and rutted. Here the versions agree. The wagon stalled. Reynolds ordered the prisoners to help push. Shackles made footing bad. In the tangle, a prisoner grabbed the deputy's sidearm or the shotgun. Struggle turned into a rush. Reynolds was shot and beaten. Holmes was killed trying to fight off the charge. Middleton took a blast that broke his jaw and shoulder, but survived by feigning death. The prisoners took the keys and ran for the canyons, scattering into the scrub with 2 guns and a head start. The killings at Kelvin lit the territory. Posse riders mounted within hours. Soldiers at nearby posts mounted. Al Sieber, on a cane, his ankle never right, rode again to read tracks he knew all too well. For weeks, the search ran along the Gila, into the Pinals and the Sierra Ancha. Weather and water left mixed sign. Several escapees were taken or killed in separate clashes. One surrendered after running out of food. Another fell in a firefight near the Pinals. A few were seen heading south for the Sierra Madre. Whether the kid led or simply survived depended on the report you read. The name Apache Kid began to stretch. Any raid or missing stock could be pinned to him. Many of those stories were fear at work, but not all the killings were rumors. Some settlers and travelers died in strikes, blamed on small Apache parties moving across the borderlands. Each time, the kid's name moved to the front. Some sightings had weight. In 1890, a party of scouts reported trading shots with a handful of men in the Pinals and thought the kid was among them. A year later, a cattleman told of a brief glimpse near the Dripping Springs Range. South of the line, Mexican rurales and volunteers pushed into the Sierra Madre and came back empty or not at all. None of it was proof, but it kept his name alive. Meanwhile, the law tried to close the case file. Courts confirmed the murder charges from Kelvin. Rewards were posted and increased. In 1896, soldiers fought a sharp action in New Mexico's San Mateo Mountains against a small, fast band. Some officers said the leader moved like the kid. Others doubted it. The kid's death was reported at least twice and then retracted when another rumor placed him alive 100 miles away. By 1900, the trail was thin. The last steady talk placed a small party far down in the Sierra Madre, living on the move, keeping off roads and away from settlements. Old scouts said he would never come in. He had lived too long with the knowledge that a cell or a rope waited on the far end of any promise. Whether that man was the Apache Kid or a shape made by fear depended on the teller. What is solid is this: a young man from the San Carlos community rode as a scout for the United States, helped bring in raiding bands, and earned the trust of a hard chief of scouts. A shot at a tense disarming wounded that chief. Territorial justice fell. Appeals bounced the case across the West. During a prison transfer, the wagon stalled on a grade and violence exploded. 2 officers died. A driver lived with scars. The prisoners scattered. Some were caught or killed. One, the most famous, vanished into the backcountry and into legend. The land explains the rest. The Pinals and superstitions break into cuts where a man can step out of sight in 3 strides. The Sierra Ancha folds on itself in canyons where water hides under willow and salt cedar. South of the border, the Sierra Madre rises in broken stone and pine where even trackers get lost. A party that knows how to live lean can vanish for months. A man who trusts no one can vanish for years. Al Sieber kept reading that ground for other cases. He died in 1907, crushed under a boulder while building a road at Roosevelt Dam. By then, the kid story had set. A scout-turned-outlaw after a betrayal and a hard trial, blamed for killings he may or may not have done, chased across a map he knew better than anyone behind him. The reward posters turned yellow, and the desert kept its secrets. Another claim surfaced now and then. A man found an old camp. A skeleton turned up in a wash with cartridge cases nearby. None of those finds pinned the ending down. The kid's final day was never proven. No marked grave, no official witness, no clean line under the name. What remained was the trail, set in court records, newspapers, and family memory. If you walk the Gila where the Kelvin Road once cut high over the water, you can still see the bend and feel how a wagon would grind there with a heavy load. Wind carries the smell of creosote and river silt. It is easy to picture the stall, the shouted order, the sudden rush. From that moment, a life with 2 tracks became one, soldier to fugitive, scout to quarry. The rest is lines in the dust that the wind lifted long ago, and a name that still carries weight when people talk about the years when Arizona was a hard place to be young and caught between worlds. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.